Welcome to a tutorial on demonstrating the risk of running vulnerable software on a server. This video will also demonstrate the risk of using a default user account. For this exercise, we are going to use Ability Server as our example of vulnerable software. Over here, I am running a virtual machine that is using Windows XP Service Pack 3. And I am running Ability Server 2.34. This will be our target machine. On the left, I am using a Linux machine to perform the attacks, as you can see here. So, to start our attack, we are going to enumerate the services running on the target machine. Using Nmap, we determine that there are several services open. The first service we see is FTP. FTP interests hackers for several reasons. You can use it to transfer files, and sometimes you can use it to further an exploit. So, we can take a look at the FTP server and see what we're dealing with here. So, pretend we don't have this GUI access on the right. We still can determine that Ability Server 2.34 is running because it is in the banner. By doing some Googling, we determine that Ability Server version 2.34 has a default username of FTP and a default password of FTP. We are able to successfully log in and run FTP commands such as dir, enumerating directory. So, there are several risks here. The first risk is the clear risk that we can run FTP commands and potentially transfer data from our target or from our host machine, the Linux machine, to our target machine, the Windows machine. This could be an issue for an administrator if a hacker is using his server as a repository for illegal files. This could get the administrator in a lot of trouble if they're caught with these files on his computer. So, what other risks does this cause? Let's take a look at Metasploit. Metasploit is an exploit framework. After doing some searching, we see that there's an exploit for the store command on Ability Server. The store command is vulnerable to a buffer overflow, allowing us to place arbitrary code in memory. When decoded, our arbitrary code is a shell. So we set the payload here, as I'm highlighting, as a reverse TCP shell that will connect back to us and give us backdoor access because it is exploiting the store command on the Ability Server. We are able to do this because we have a valid username and a valid password. If an administrator had changed the default username and the default password, we would not be able to run this exploit, even though it is vulnerable to the exploit in Metasploit. But since we have identified the default username and password as working, as demonstrated earlier, we can now run the attack. So, let's go ahead and exploit the attack. Aha! We are granted an interactive shell on our target server. Among many things, we can run commands as if we were at the command prompt, as demonstrated over here. So we run ipconfig over there, we run ipconfig over here. And as you notice, the two outputs are identical. Now this could be an issue. We could copy files from other remote servers, we could configure files, we could upload files. For example, we can add a text file If we enumerate the directory, we see it was successfully uploaded. And just to confirm, we see this text file was successfully uploaded. A standard interactive shell is very useful for a hacker. However, Metasploit has another shell that is called Meterpreter. And Meterpreter is a very powerful interactive shell. So we're going to demonstrate the true risk of running vulnerable software and or using a default username and password on your software. So we're going to set a new payload, which is the exploit that decodes in memory due to the buffer overflow. We're going to confirm our options are set correctly, and they are. And we're going to exploit. Success! As you can see, we were able to gain a reverse shell, and our shell is the Meterpreter shell. Now, what exactly can we do with the Meterpreter shell, you may be asking? Well, for example, I can dump all the hashes on the machine. These password hashes can be cracked using pre-computing hashing tables such as Rainbow Tables, or programs such as John the Ripper. This is either free or very inexpensive software and would provide the hacker the ability to have a clear text password of these users. Oh, can't run that command. What else can we do? Let's see. Looking through here, we see there's a lot of commands. This one's interesting. Key scan start. Start capturing keystrokes. This might be useful if the admin is running other applications in addition to Ability Server that may have sensitive information, such as a username and password. So let's just to demonstrate the risk, let's pretend we're at an interactive login for a sensitive application. So we see there's a username field and we enter in our sensitive superadmin account username, superadmin password as the password. I'm typing this in Notepad as an example, but let's go back here and see what we got. Using the keyscan dump command, we can see superadmin account, the backspace, they corrected the E, so we know that'd be super. And then for the password, we see superadmin password. These are clear text keystrokes that we're sniffing on the target computer. Meterpreter is an example of just one of the shells we can use. And it's very powerful and is able to enumerate a lot of information about the computer. Running vulnerable software that is unpatched and also using default accounts increases the risk of your server and of your environment.